Good afternoon and welcome to your daily support call. My name is Marcus from How To Project, and today we have the beautiful soul, Francina Grazette with us. Francina, can you just give us a little intro to you, please?
Hi everyone, Francina, Grazette, Necessary Naturals. I have a certified organic skincare line. Also a mom of a 4-year-old, so things are very, very exciting at home.
Wonderful introduction, and look at that, you've already introduced topics for us. So we'll come back to business stuff a little later on, but let's talk about that. So single mom of 4-year-old, that part you forgot to mention, but you're the
Yes.
single mom of a 4-year-old, and you also have your parents staying with you. So
Yes.
you have all of you in the same house.
Yes.
You, not really so much at risk necessarily for everything going on in the world right now, but the two demographics most at risk are the older, like our parents and your parents, and of course the children. So how is that? Like, I have not been able to talk about that because one, I don't have children, and two, my parents aren't staying with me right now. So
Right.
give us your perspective on what that's been like over the last month or so.
Well, to make it a little bit even more of a different experience, my dad does have a chronic disease. He does have had kidney failure, so he's had a transplant. So he has to take a lot of medication, anti-rejection medication as well. So his body alone is compromised. My mom is 72, so she's diabetic, which is another chronic disease that can impact people of her age and the diabetes. And then my 4-year-old, I mean, to me, it's easier. What I think I'm dealing with the more challenging things is explaining to my daughter why she can't go out, explaining, let's wash her hands again and again and again. We touch the floor again, let's wash our hands again. She's getting into the habit. We do a song. We don't do happy birthday like everyone's been told to do. We pick a song, and however long it is, if it's a minute long, it's a minute long. It's better for us and better practice for her. So in terms of dealing with her, it's fun. We can go in the backyard, some bubbles. I took her for a short drive to a mall empty parking lot and let her go out with her scooter just to ride around and get some fresh air. With my parents, it's a little different in the sense of there's more concern and fear, for lack of a better word. So even if I take my daughter out, it's be careful, and we're not around people at all. So it's at home. It's a lot more wiping down. Really, that's all it is, because we're home most of the time. So it's a lot more being mindful of your actions. If I happen to touch my face, just out of habit, I'm just gonna wash my hands you never know. So
Right.
that's how it is for the home. It's not a significant difference, but it's just more of a subconscious difference because of my parents and their age. That's what it is for me.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, there's so much there. So let's unpack some. I mean,
Okay.
I never realized until all of this how much I touch my face.
Right. Exactly.
Like so much. And honestly, my skin has never been better not touching my face. So in some ways, it's been a blessing. You talk about taking her out, to an empty parking lot just so she can get some exercise in, some fresh air in. We're very blessed. We have a rooftop patio here. So that's been wonderful. But it's funny, we had a guest on not too long ago that said, look, if this was the zombie apocalypse, would you take your daughter out to a deserted parking lot to let her have some exercise? And the obvious answer would be no, because zombies could show up at any time. But really, that's what this is. Like, it's invisible.
That's what it feels like. It feels
right?
like it.
It does feel like that. But the difference is we can't see this killer.
Right.
So there's some people that would not take their children out at all. So I can see where your parents are coming from. They're like, oh, be safe, be safe. I mean, and then on the other hand, it's like, well, like if we're observing the physical distancing and everything else, does it matter? And that's, for me, the biggest interesting question has been, does any of it matter? Because the rules keep changing every day as we learn more. Some people are ignoring it completely, which kind of makes it useless as a society experiment anyway. And yet the data shows that the majority of us are doing what we're supposed to do and staying the fuck home. That's the first time I've sworn on this entire show. So yay, of course it was going to be with you. Yay. So yeah, and I mean, again, fear with your parents' pre-existing conditions. I didn't know Have you, like, you seem really chill about it right now. Has that been the experience from day one, or is this just where you've netted out at?
Um, it's been that way from day one in spots. I do have my moments of slight panic, so to speak, but that's after I watch the news. So I realize I've
Right.
always been that kind of person where I'm easily influenced by someone's emotions. So if you're sad, then I'll be sad. If you're happy, I'm happy. I really feed off of people's energy. So if I'm listening to something that's not as cheerful, it would affect my mood. So I do limit myself significantly on watching the news. I'll let my dad be the news because he watches CNN all day. So I'll let him give me the little tidbits of information that I need. But it's not far. My practices aren't too far from what I was doing before. I was that person that didn't have any shame in pulling out a bottle of wipes and wiping down my table at a restaurant,
Right.
asking for water and wiping off my utensils. Those are things that I did anyway. And every time I came into the car, there was hand sanitizer and have my daughter hand sanitize as well. So it wasn't the only thing that I've done more of is more of the cleaning. So it wasn't too far from what I was doing anyway. Um, but the panic comes when I'm relaxed. I'll be like, oh, wow, what a nice day. It was so quiet. Why was my day so quiet? Oh my gosh, yes, because I have to stay home. Like you forget for a moment, what a productive day. I got a lot of things done. How come I got so many things done? Oh yeah, because I
Right.
was told to stay home.
Well, and
So
that's, in so many ways, it's been a blessing. Like Farah, my
mm,
wife, again, I'm so fortunate for her. She feels so validated right now because from the day I met her, she's always had an emergency hygiene kit, right?
mm,
Like her purse has probably got a medical supply store in it, right? And then same with the glove box in her car and everything else. So all these practices you're talking about, she's all like, "See, I told you that's how it was,"
right,
right?
right, right.
And now it's just part of our new normal. But you're so right. I mean, it's you and I, we have a common business mentor in Colin Sprake. And one of the things he talks about, and many other people talks about, is vibrational energy and being connected to the universe or God or whatever you want to call it for yourself. And he talks about how what you put out is what you attract. And it's
Yes.
funny in some ways. Someone pointed this out to me again on this call, was if the entire world is putting out the whole idea of not enough time, not enough time, not enough time, well, look at how funny the universe can be because it's now given us all the time that we wanted, right?
And how are we using it, right? I mean,
How are we
I
using
love
it? Not effectively for the most part, for from what I've
a lot of
seen.
people aren't,
No,
and I think that goes back to one, it's our behavior, but two, we think we'll be out tomorrow. Everything will be fine tomorrow. Sometimes we have to plan for this may be our new norm. So
right.
work as if it's your new norm. Structure your day, and that's what I did. I printed out a day calendar, and I told my daughter, okay, from this time to this time we're doing this, and this time, and it helps me too because I've set my day from 1 to 6 to do work. So outside of that is whatever we plan to do with each other for the rest of the day. So I like structure, and this is a good way to put those little things and tools you have in place so you use your day effectively, right?
Right. Well, and I think that's what's been interesting because you and I are both business owners, as you said, necesse naturals. What I found interesting is structuring your day, blocking time, whether you do it by hour or how much time you need to accomplish something, honoring that structure so that when work time is done, even if you got more to do, no, it's daughter time now. Those have always been good practices anyway. Now they've become critical practices for
Yes.
sanity. And
Yes.
and this whole process you've talked about, the new norm and everything else, I'll swing back to that. What's been interesting is, again, another guest here. I have learned so much doing the show. It's been amazing. She was talking about how we're going actually through the grief cycle, which is why I asked how you've been from the get-go, because
Mm,
at first, the 4 stages of grief, there's the fear of it, then there's the anger, then there's the sadness, then there's the acceptance. And some people have not thoroughly processed the grief yet, and they're still expecting this to end any day. I was in a board meeting this morning, and I was talking with one of our board members who is really into math, and he's been collecting actual data every day and plotting his own curve based on what the data is, not on what the media tells us, because of course they sensationalize and everything. And it led to this interesting discussion that we're going to have right now, that basically his data shows that we'll have flattened the curve probably by the end of April. So he thinks by May, things will start to get back to normal. And that's when I corrected him and said, first of all, there's no going back. Things will normalize, but this is the new way of doing
Yes,
things.
it
And that's
is.
part of that acceptance. Like, don't do things right now as a business owner, as someone who doesn't have a job. I mean, I get it. You know, we all need money. The government's stepping up to help people that can't create their own money. But at the same time, you can't be chasing something temporary. We need to focus the time we do have and the energy we do have on how to incorporate these new tools, these new processes, these new structures into a lasting, sustainable system, not just for our businesses and ourselves, but for our world, like not environmentally speaking necessarily, but just for how society is going to run going forward, right?
Yes.
And then we challenged his data, not that it wasn't accurate, but even if the curve is flattened, that doesn't mean the virus is eradicated,
Exactly.
right? What that
Exactly
means
it.
is it stopped the spread. And the danger that the government's already looking at is if you preemptively tell people, okay, everybody go back to work, then the second round could be worse than the first round ever
And
was.
that's why I hope that the government is going to be cautious about when to say it's okay.
Right.
Hopefully, what I'm hoping for, this is my biggest hope, is that people are going to go out with a little hesitation, but with the same practices they've been using for the past few weeks. Don't go and, hey, I don't have to wash my hands. Hey, five, guys, hug.
Well,
Like,
right.
you know,
And yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, maybe finger guns will make a comeback.
yeah, yeah.
But that's what we were discussing this morning. And then there was some other data from a couple of politicians I've spoken with, where it's just that point. I mean, even if the virus is gone, where is people's sense of safety and security and comfort going to be? So it may take 9 to 12 months where we're basically in a semi-quarantine state before people start to
Okay,
feel comfortable.
that makes
And then,
sense.
of course, if it goes on 9 to 12 months, then that's going to take 2 to 3 years for the economy to recover.
That
And
makes
just
sense.
before this call, a friend of mine who was in that conversation this morning, board of directors, sent me a link that apparently what the latest projections are is that we may experience intermittent physical distancing until 2022. Right?
Good,
That's 2 years away. Yeah, I'm all for
good.
it because it means once it's gone, it'll be gone. Because by then we'll
Right.
have a vaccine and everything else, and it'll be minimalized. Our medical systems will be able to sustain whatever cases there are. And you know what? If it's going to be that long, that means this is definitively the new normal. So work through the process for those watching that maybe haven't. Give yourself time, allow yourself to, right? Like experience it. Don't suddenly be like, oh, I gotta get myself sorted. No, take your time, grieve
Yeah,
if you
there's no
need.
rush. Yeah, there's no
No,
rush.
just
Yeah.
be true to you. Don't ignore your emotions or your feelings. So this whole conversation keeps recurring because I find it interesting how everyone has a different reaction. You're the first one that's like, good, hell yeah, I'll stay home, right? Because you just want it gone,
Well,
right?
I want it gone, and I want people to recognize the importance of their actions. So it was. I might not be the best person for the response because it's very duh. So when they were saying, "Well, wash your hands," don't shake hands, and distancing, and wash your hands, wash your hands. I'm like, duh. And when you hear the symptoms, I'm thinking I recognize that it's more severe than the common flu, but it's the same practices you would use to avoid catching a cold or a flu. So I don't see why people wouldn't jump on it. I understand people get comfortable and they don't realize their own habits. And I'm hoping people use this time to recognize their habits. Man, I touch my face a lot. Oh, I scratch my head a lot. Even the fact that because I've done my best to make such a habit that because I do my best not to scratch, I have about 3 places right now where I want to scratch just because I'm trying to limit myself from scratching, right? So,
Oh yeah, the second I put the LED ring on in front of me for this show, my entire face itches for like the entire time. It's just like,
yeah.
but you can't touch it, right? Can't
Right,
touch it. And
right.
it actually makes me appreciate stage performers that wear makeup, right? Because if you're
That's
not
true.
familiar with it and you're not comfortable with it, it gets really itchy, especially under
Mm.
hot pot lights for like a 4-hour show. But anyway, back to what you were saying. One of my favorite phrases that again isn't always politically correct is "None of us are as stupid as all of us." Right? And
Mm.
there's this mob mentality that grows exponentially. I mean, look at the whole toilet paper hoarding. Fun fact, here's a trivia bit. I actually
Okay.
found out, did some researching on where that even came from.
Did
Do
it
you
come
have any
from
idea?
Australia? Is it true Australia?
Well, actually, it's from Wuhan. right? It started in Wuhan.
Okay. Okay.
And what happened is when this whole thing started to spread there, they quickly responded with military law and locked down everybody. And it was just a random post that a citizen made that basically said, we're in lockdown, running low on toilet paper. Well, of course you are, because you didn't expect it to happen.
Right.
So you
Right.
bought a normal amount of toilet paper. That got, of course, put up on a media two-bit, what is that called? A soundbite? And they're like, supplies of toilet paper running low in China. And then the world freaks out and everybody has to have toilet paper. This is how none of us are as stupid as all of us works out. And we're even doing it again now. Like, forget habits of touching your face and everything else, but you saw it recently because, we're very good friends. You're like a sister to me. And I shared a post about how even in the last week or two, when we've been buying our medical gloves, buying our disposable masks, and they're just pictures of the amount of litter all over the streets of these medical supplies.
That was
and
so saddening.
angering is what it is, because it's like, even in the midst of it, this whole thing about hygiene should be basic, people, wash your face after you touch it and all these kind of things. It should also be very common sense to put things in the garbage when you're done with them, not just throw them on the street, right?
Well,
And
I
yet
say
here we are.
saddening. Yeah, I say saddening because that's the emotion that I felt right away. I looked at that picture and I said, my heart just went, oh, really? You tell me there wasn't a garbage can 2 feet, 3 feet? When you went to your car, you don't have a garbage bag in your car? Like, it was just so disappointing.
But that's just it. Like, if it is so disappointing, because again, we're screwing it up. We are screwing
Yes.
it up as a
Yep.
species. We really are. And at the end of the day, the government's going to have to make another announcement to say, if you are going to go outside, make sure you have a plastic bag in your car for your medical supplies.
And that's when
And
people
then,
will listen.
right. And then they'll be like, oh, that makes so much sense. Why did I
Right.
never think of that? Right? Because it's that mentality. And I think the people that are having the most struggle right now with the grief, unfortunately, is full-time employees. Because back to what we talked about with structure that you've created for yourself, you've created for your daughter, I've created for myself and our team, and that they've never had that skill. Their routine has always been that rat race: get up, commute, be told what to do all day, right? Have your
That
structure,
makes sense.
come home.
Okay.
So their entire world has been upended, because not only is it a financial shock, but it's a culture shock, because suddenly they don't know what to do because they've never been trained that way. Whereas
No,
as
I'm
entrepreneurs,
gonna thank you for that point, because now I'll be a little bit more sensitive. When I no, because I didn't really put the two together to recognize that people are so used to being. A lot of people are, which is a lot of structure and being told how to use their time. 15-minute breaks only, 1 hour break for lunch. That's it. And like I never really thought about it that way. So thank you for that. I will be more sensitive to
yeah.
people now.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
honestly, that's where my empathy had to come in from, because we've been very busy helping a lot of companies transition from, an on-site workforce to a remote workforce, because they've never really experienced it. And I go back to the work of Michael Gerber a lot, the whole E-Myth Revisited, and he talks about, systems and culture make business. Right. And what people don't realize is the systems is, yes, the tools like Zoom and all that kind of stuff. That's only half of working remotely or being on a distributed team. The other part is culture, your work culture. And that's what you and I are talking about now. Like, standing around the water cooler, everybody having a bagel and catching up on Game of Thrones or whatever it was last night. I think that ended a year ago. Shows how much TV I watch. But the idea is that not only are they at a loss because they don't have all these systems in place now, but they also don't have the culture in place. Whereas you and I have worked a bit on those systems, and we've worked on that culture. So yeah, everybody's in their own state of processing how to transition. So it can be interesting, but still, that's no excuse for poor human behavior and
No,
some
there
of the
isn't.
stuff, not just the gloves, but even some of the things I've seen online with the fighting over toilet paper and this and that. I mean, I'm going to be crude with you for a minute. My wife's from Pakistan and everything, and we're making the joke about, soapy hand. I don't have to hoard anything. I have a soapy hand. Right? And at the end of the
Yeah.
day, if this does go on for like 9 to 12 months and for some reason supplies of toilet paper run out, I'm going to be okay.
I think I'm gonna be okay. Because the first thing, when I first heard about the whole toilet paper craze, my mind instantly went to, oh my goodness, is one of the side effects diarrhea? So when I
Right?
looked, I was like, it's not, then I don't get it. And I just said, you know what, I'm not gonna even go down that rabbit hole. but maybe one person had diarrhea and people went crazy and bought toilet paper. But I'm like,
Sure.
why would you buy food? Why would you see me? One of the first things I did, ran to Walmart and bought rubbing alcohol because everything that my house that I clean with has a water and alcohol combination
Right.
and essential oils. That's what I did. So I was like, and what made me smile was when I went to Walmart, though it was a wall of it. You could like there was too much of it, of the rubbing alcohol. And I was like, how come no one's picking this stuff up? And I'm picking up like 5 bottles. But people were aware at that point. I didn't take it seriously at that point, right? I didn't realize you can
Yeah.
make it at home. So
Right. Which again, back to that grief, that's the initial stage, is the fear. And even then it was very polarizing. And I think I even talked about that in one of the first episodes here, is the two reactions originally was meh, right? Just wasn't taken
yes.
seriously, or end of the world. Right. So similar to you, same thing. I mean, we went out like and did a supply run. I told Farah, I said, we should do this. And she's like, yeah, definitely. So we went out, got cleaning supplies, got toilet paper, we even broke our food list into tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. So you've got,
Perfect.
your fresh foods that are important. Then you got some of your canned goods, and then the stuff that frozen goods. Then your canned goods is the tier 3, right?
Right, right.
So we're good. We're good. If we have to lock in for 12 months, we don't really need to leave the house at this point. We could go to the tier 2 and tier 3. We even saw some things and we're like, that might be tier 4. So let's just pass on it for now. Right?
Not luncheon meat. I don't really have to have luncheon meat. That could
Well,
be
there was actually a joke online. It was about how the company that made Spam did their first run
it's
of
like
Spam in 1893. And due to all the hoarding and what's going on in the world right now, they're about to make a second run. And I laughed so hard at that, because that's exactly what's been happening with the mob
right.
mentality. If it was on a shelf, it was gone. And again, even some of the consumer reports I've seen recently for places like Costco, with lineups like just down the streets, and partly because of the physical distancing, but partly because just everybody's swarming it. It's Trader Joe's down in the US, but you can go 2 streets down to like your local grocery store and everything they're waiting for is there.
It's right there, and
It's
people
right
aren't
there.
going there. Yeah, and they think
Yeah.
they're out
So,
of stock, and it's not. But
right.
one thing I wanted to mention that I heard on the radio this morning was there was a gentleman that was arrested for hoarding a very large amount of supplies. We're talking over 100,000 of gloves, of masks, of anything that the medical industry would be using, and selling it at a 700% markup.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
now I understand you want to become an entrepreneur overnight, but you can't just throw, and I know I'm using the word can't, but I'm going to use it here because I'm declaring
Proper
you
use.
can't, you cannot. And I do not want people to profit 700% off it, especially when there's a shortage. You know that I need it. You know that it's one of those things where people get a little, that's how they get caught, when they get comfortable and they don't realize who's seeing it. The doctor that actually made an order of like $1,200 worth of supplies went to the car garage and saw the walls of supplies this gentleman had. And that's when the FBI got involved. And it's like, to do all that for money, to take advantage of people when there's a shortage, there's the good people, the bad people still come out. And I stay home.
Well, and something interesting is that it was like, this isn't changing us into people we don't want to be. It's revealing who we really were the whole time.
Yes,
right?
thank you.
But let's talk about this, because there's ethical selling, non-ethical selling. I read a story when this first started about a couple down in the States, maybe it's the same ones. They had like $100,000 worth of this stuff and they're just selling it out of their pickup truck. And then eventually they got shut down. There was
Things
people
that I saw on Amazon, yeah.
and they got shut down. And even price gouging here in Canada, there's like convenience stores and stuff charging $17 for a small thing of hand sanitizer, and that's being shut down. Now, ethically, I don't agree with that. However, I don't necessarily, sure, there's some bad people that are just like, oh yeah, we can get rich really quick. But there may also be some people that are just quick-witted and they're not thinking about the morality. They're like, hey, if we're going to go into a recession, if we're going to be going into this state of uncertainty, what can we do to make as much money as possible quickly so I can take care of my family?
I understand.
Right? Because there's always a difference between the facts and the story. And I don't know. I don't. Like, for example, same kind of thing. Economics 101 states supply and demand. So this whole argument we were just having, like debate about this, fundamentally is incorrect in principle, because as the supply diminishes, the demand goes up. And when the demand goes up, the price goes up. So even when a lot of places were selling out of toilet paper, the places that had toilet paper were increasing the price and also putting a limit. And people were so upset online because, oh, it's price gouging. I'm like, no, it's supply and demand. That's how an economy works, right?
Right.
So yeah, and I love how they're doing it now in some parts of the world. I don't remember which country, so I won't pretend to, but for example, you can go buy Lysol wipes, and the first canister of Lysol wipes, if you buy it as a customer, is like, I don't know, $3.99 or whatever they cost. But after that, it's $99 a canister. So if you really
Well, it
want,
makes you think though, yeah, if you really need it.
yeah, then you'll buy it. But if not, you're just going to buy one at a time so that more people get it. So I
I
think
like
what
that.
is happening, yeah, the ethics are triumphing over the idea of diminishing supplies, because they don't want to get into a state where they're forced to. Because at the end of the day, think about this. One of the essential workers right now that a lot of people are underestimating is the truck drivers. We've got no planes just, flying around. Well, not no planes, but minimal planes, minimal shipments. So we have trucks driving everything everywhere. And whether you've got, 100 skids of medical supplies, cleaning supplies, whatever, on a truck, or 5 skids, you still have to pay the same to get them here. So obviously that cost is going to skyrocket if you've only got the 5 skids available. So I like what companies are proactively doing in minimizing quantities, but even then you still see human nature coming out in some people, all based out of fear.
I was gonna say
All
it's
ignorance,
all
right?
because of fear.
It's all
Yeah.
based out of fear. So let's talk about that. So what have been some of your fearful moments through all of this so far?
Fearful moment. There was information that I heard that really got me to go, am I ever going to go out? It was a friend of mine who's a scientist, and she said, well, if someone is ill and they cough or sneeze, the particles stay in the air for 3 hours. I said, 3 hours? So if I see someone walk by, if I happen to be looking out the window and I want to go out, and I see someone walking by, do I wait 3 hours? Like, how particular could I get? How much fear could I put in myself to avoid those things? And I think that was one piece of information that I found that kind of put a little bit of fear in me. And then there was a video that was circulated, was people touching car handles, like purposely coughing and sneezing and touching door handles on people's cars. I was like, okay, now another thing I never thought of that I have to be proactive about. It was just those two main things that come to mind that really did put the fear in me. The one thing I don't want to do, and which I have a habit of doing, and you can probably attest to this, is I don't want to scorn anyone, but I still want to be cautious. I mean, I can't help but think about the people that I live with, my family, and not even for me, for all I know, I have something, but I might be carrying it, but it's not showing itself yet. So it's just one of those things where it's made me super cautious, borderline fear. If I let it sit down and think about it too much, it could turn into fear in any moment. Any stat or any fact could just go, oh, I gotta put that into high gear, and then I become fearful.
Right. Well, and for me, it's similar. It's not like I'm so used to misinformation and different things. So I always do my best to validate. But for me, it's my firsthand experiences tend to be where my fear is. So back to when we went out on that first grocery run or supply run, whatever you want to call it, this is even before physical distancing was enforced. And I'd already seen how it'd been spreading in other parts of the world. I'd already seen what they were doing to control it. And yet there we are out doing this, and everyone's still touching everything. Everyone's still crammed in lines together. Like, because it was like Black Friday mobs. And that's how, and I was like, no, I don't want to go near people. So I quite literally, here I am in the midst of a crowd doing my best. I didn't know it was 6 feet, but it was my stay the hell away distance. Right. And so if people were just going by, I just stopped. Or if someone's in front of me and they stop their cart to look at something, I would just stop. And Farah's with me, and she's like, do you have to be so rude about them? Don't care. They'll get a hint. Don't stop in the middle of the aisle when other people want to get by you. Like, I just no, I'm not going near you. I don't want to go near you. You're gross. I'm gross. Don't want to go near you.
Right.
a lot of my other fear also was because the last couple of years I've suffered pneumonia, which was new for me. I'm a very healthy person. I take very good care of myself, but the last 2 years I had bouts of pneumonia, which apparently can become chronic.
Yes.
And I just recovered from one a few months ago. And in hindsight, I'm like, did I have COVID before people really knew it was a thing? So that freaked me out a bit. And then I was like, should I even be going out at all? And what's going to happen? So the way I dealt with my fear was my extreme nature head on. I just accepted I have it and everyone else has it, whether they're showing it or not. Good. Now that I have that out of the way, what is my behavior? And
That's
it's
good.
actually, it really changed things for me. Really changed things for me because now, the way I interact with anything, whether it's myself, my wife, our house, the equipment I'm using, anything I do, it's like, okay, assume I'm infected. How would I treat things differently? And it's been very interesting. But a lot more peaceful in most ways, and obviously a lot cleaner. Like our house has never looked more spotless.
Right. No, I like that. I like that. And it's a smart way to think. I don't think it's fearful. I don't think it's paranoid. It's just smart because you don't know what bacteria you could be carrying. You have no idea. It doesn't show itself. It doesn't put a sign over its forehead saying, hey, you're coming up with a cold in a week. It's just being smart. And that's the one thing that I did was one of the things I did was I went to my essential oils. So I always look to see what essential oil can help. So I went and bought a lot of essential oils. I even bought one because I knew that once I'm home, I'll nibble a lot more. I have a tendency just to get really snacky. So I bought an essential oil to help curb my cravings and my sweet cravings. I was like, anything I can do, use my distiller and just my diffuser and just put in ones that help get rid of bacteria, help the immune system, and maybe read more. And that's what I'm grateful for. Is that I wouldn't have done that had this not happened. But it's one of those things where something that you should put into practice anyway. But I'm glad that I'm coming out smarter out of this, being more proactive in my actions.
Absolutely. My hands down, my favorite phrase I've heard so far is from my good friend Mike Reed from Dent Global. He's one of the co-founders of Dent, and he was on the show yesterday. And what he's been doing with his clients and students is he's teaching them a process of reset and reinvent, where essentially what's happened is we've been forced to go back to that one thing we're really good at that we can contribute to society with. Right? Because while we're blessed to have all this technology, I mean, look at us connecting right now. I mean, 100 years ago, there was the Great Depression, and maybe will be the greatest depression. I don't know. It's too soon to tell. But back then, they did not have this technology.
Yes.
So they were isolated for months and months and months. News came slowly. There was people that had no idea what was going on because they were still forced into their homes. We know instantly, which in some ways is a blessing, in other ways a curse. But the whole idea of this reset and reinvent and forcing us to get back to that one thing, I love that phrase, that one thing we're good at, and really nurturing that, and especially because we have the time to do that. We have the technology to do that. All the leading universities, Yale, MIT, Harvard, all their courses are online for free right now. So there's so much opportunity. Plus, how good will it look on the resume to say studied at Harvard, right?
Right. Online. Yeah.
The thing is, though, of course, this is the way it goes. It may not become a thing anymore because
No, it won't be a big deal.
You get 10,000 applicants that all studied at Harvard, then suddenly Harvard's lost its prestige a little bit. Right? So.
Well, they'll make it work. I mean, we'll all make it work. We're gonna come out of this a lot wiser, with different practices, hopefully new habits, and it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It's been a very scary time. I feel for those that have lost, or even a friend of mine. I haven't heard from her for a few days, and I was getting worried because usually she replies, very quickly. I had the flu, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Of course, I'm thinking it's the worst, but it was just a cold, really, right? Because the flu it actually takes you out of your being able to move. But it made me go right to that, right? Oh my goodness, did she get corona? Oh my gosh, I feel so bad for her. What can I do? What can I do? And then it makes me realize, there's another friend of mine that has respiratory issues. She has asthma, very bad asthma. And I think, oh goodness, my heart goes out to her because she has to be extra cautious about going out. So it makes me realize the people around me more, recognize them more. I think about Farah all the time. I'm like, oh my goodness, I know you're very proactive, and it's like, man, the things that she did before, I hope she doesn't become paranoid I use that word loosely now. Um, just be cautious, not be fearful. That's what I want people to do, is to be
Well, yeah.
cautious. Yeah.
And for those that don't know my wife and are watching, my wife also has a pre-existing compromised immune system. So yeah, she doesn't like, if someone has to go out of the house, it's me. She
Right.
does not like to go out of the house. And we have a routine, of course, because we live in a townhouse that is actually stacked on another townhouse. So we're very fortunate that we have 2 fire doors separating us from outside, and handrails and the whole bit. So we actually have, you know, the Clorox wipes downstairs, and the routine is, as soon as I come in, it's wipe down the handles and then wipe the handrails all the way up, because she doesn't want
Nice.
any germs coming in the house. Right.
Right.
Whatever I wore outside goes into a garbage bag to be thrown immediately into the wash. Right. Because we can't afford to take a chance with her, which is true. But back to your friend though, and paranoia, we've all been there. Like the first time I sniffled, I was like, right, and we've all had that moment. Oh no, what's going on? And it's challenging too, especially time of year, right? Everyone's like, oh, the warm weather will make it better, but yeah, the warm weather is when the allergies come out. It's when you open the windows to your home and all the winter dust gets into your system. So everybody's getting all these fake symptoms and like freaking out of their skin. Meanwhile, if I do have to go, and I'm the guy that's going to fake a sneeze just so people stay away. that's just how I am. But let's talk about how we are, because this is a fun story in hindsight. Like I said, you and I, we've been friends for almost 3 years now, and every time we've seen each other, there's always the biggest, warmest hugs. I hope that doesn't change in the new, whatever it is. And the last time we were together, you were not yourself. You were not open. You were not friendly. Even your physicality, you were all huddled.
Very closed.
Like you wouldn't even look at people, as if looking at people somehow was going to get you infected. You just stared down the whole time. And it unnerved me because, of course, first I thought maybe I had said or done something and it was just me. But then the more I observed, it was not just me. And it was a 2-day event we're at last time, and you had not wanted to be there. You were a little bit fearful of everything going on, so you didn't come back the second day. I want you to finish this story from your point of view, please.
Okay. So I already, like I said, I've had the practices of being clean and doing the best that I can. Leading up to the 2-day event, though, I was, man, my mind was in 2 places. Do I go? Don't I go? You know, this thing that they're calling Corona. I mean, what is it? How can people get it? And it was still so new. So I was like, okay, what can I do to put things in place to make myself feel safe? And I went into the fear. So I guess my cycle went a lot faster. Fear went right to the roof. What can I do? And I armed, and I say armed, I should have had a utility belt of all these things that I needed. I told myself I'm the kind of person that likes to be early to an event. And I said, I'm getting there late because I want the last row to sit. But I'll get there not too late that I'll be forced to go to the front, but at least in the back, the last seat will be perfect. Sure enough, what I put out there came to me. I got the last row, last seat. I was like, perfect. I'm gonna arm myself. And if anyone saw my setup, they'd be like, what is this girl doing? I had my water to keep myself hydrated. I had a bottle of alcohol, a bottle of hand sanitizer, and then I put my bag in the seat next to me so no one could sit next to me, but then obviously I had to move my bag. But what made it more challenging for me was because I was going to an event where I knew people. Mm-hmm. If it was the first day of school or the first day of a new job, it would have been no problem because people expect you to be a little shy. This was like, oh goodness, I'm going to people that I love. And I always greet them with a hug. What do I do? And I really didn't know what to do. So I said, okay, let me go there late so no one would see me. And then during breaks, I'll just keep to myself, or I'll go on the phone and check emails and things like that to keep myself occupied. So it didn't look like I was distancing myself. And when I saw you, I freaked out because I was like, oh my gosh, this is like my best friend, my big brother. But I can't right now. I can't. This is not the right time. And it wasn't you. It would have been anyone. Every single person. Hey, Francina. Hi. Gosh, that little person, that voice in my head was like, run, run, run.
Right.
Like it was literally like this. I would have dropped my, if I actually did what I felt, I would have dropped my things like this and ran. That's how it was that dramatic in my head. And it was just the weirdest. It was very different for me. It was very out of character, but yet it made me feel safe.
Mm.
So that's where my mind went. It was literally just safety, keep myself, learn what I have to learn. But then it wasn't very smart for two reasons. One, how it looked to other people, and my attention wasn't there. So I really didn't do myself any justice going to a class going, oh my gosh, okay, we're sitting so close to each other. Oh my goodness, if someone coughs, am I gonna freak out? If someone wants to talk to me, what do I do? And you spend so much time focusing on what I can't control, as opposed to, I learned a lot about myself that day, as opposed to vocalizing what I really wanted was, with this virus, everyone, I love you, but just give me the day just to keep to myself, because my mind is just going crazy. I'm not comfortable. Had I expressed that, I know the people that I was around would have honored it.
Right.
But that was just my lack of communication skills, which I have a very, very poor communication skills. So I go to fear.
This would disagree.
But in more in uncomfortable situations,
We all are like
right?
that, right? We
But
all.
it was more of a fear. Yeah, I freaked out, and I was like, when I got to my car, I was like, oh my god, okay, I'm okay.
Well, so now here's the fun part. So thank you for sharing that. I love the vulnerability. You know that it's always been something you and I have had together, which is why we are like besties. Tell me about day 2 of that event.
um, how deep do I go into day 2 of the event?
No names, but go deep about what happened and
Okay.
what your reaction was.
Okay. So, all right. So I actually did come to the site for day 2. I drove. I was more comfortable because I was like, hey, that wasn't too bad. I looked kind of crazy, but you know, it's okay. I can go to day 2. I pulled into the parking lot. I walked in. I was greeted by someone that I knew. Hey, how's it going? Oh, good. No, long time no see. Oh, did you hear? Were you here yesterday? Yeah, so yesterday. Why? Oh, someone tested positive. What? And I just felt it was fear to the 10th degree for me. And it was more of a, then it turned from fear to anger extremely quickly for me. Because I said, you see, this is what happens when you don't follow your gut, Francina. You should have followed your gut and stayed your backside home and not left the house. Like you know, I mean, it was just one of those things where I was like, well, it was gonna, and then my mind, this is mind you in a matter of hours, my mind went to, well, sorry, so let me just pause and go back, slow down a little bit. I said, okay. She said, oh, you can go ahead and go in the class. I said, nope, I'm walking right out with you. Take care. Bye. Massive love. And I went to my car and I sat there and I started to panic. I was like, okay, do I go straight home? If I've been exposed, do I go straight home? Okay, so what do I do? And I called a friend, I called my work, um, and I started to put things in place, and I called my mom, and I started to put things in place as if I was going to stay somewhere else. So I said, okay, mom, pack these things for me. I'll write a list. You're not going to hear from me. I'm going to make a few phone calls. I'm going to call the doctor's office, but I'm going to write a list of things, put it in a bag, leave it on the front on the stair, and I'll come by and get it. And then it started to go into I started to think more logically. I started to think to myself, well, this could have happened anywhere. When you went to the store yesterday, you weren't this fearful. When you were standing in line at the store yesterday, you weren't this fearful. Anyone could have been a carrier of it, and just even opening the door to the store could have I could have
Right.
caught it that way. So it was more of a, all right, let's be realistic here. You don't know how it spreads. You're assuming that it's in the air. And then I said, okay, well, I was far away enough. The doors were closed. But those little things that you kind of try to panic. And I said, no, no, no. I did the necessary precautions. I did only what I could do. I washed my hands. I didn't touch a lot of things, didn't touch my face a lot. And I was okay. But it took me from about, oh man, let's say about 8:55 till about 12 or 1 o'clock till I actually calmed down and I said, all right, I took all the necessary precautions I needed to. I let the people know who I've been in contact with during the last 24 hours. I spoke to my doctor's office. She said to stay hydrated, drink warm water to flush everything out. And if I have any symptoms, don't come to the doctor's office. Stay home and get some rest. And then once I realized I did everything I could possibly do, then I started to come back to me and I could
Right.
have a normal conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite the experience. From the inside of the room, it was similar yet interesting because I was still in the crowd. So I was actually the one that took the call, and there was broken telephone from hotel management to myself, and essentially it was that message you said. Someone attending yesterday got tested and was positive for COVID-19. What the truth of the story was is that that person's daughter, someone in their daughter's school had tested positive. So the children were being forced to stay home. So because of that, she was unable to attend. Really different story. Yet when we told it to participants and everything else, we gave the option. We're like, listen, if enough of you want to stay, the event will continue. The speaker is willing to stay and everything else. But if you aren't comfortable, then we'll just reschedule it for another time. And at first, everyone's like, no, I mean, we're all here yesterday. Everyone seems fine. It's okay. And yeah, let's do it. We're here. We might as well do it. That's what we came for. And the mood was really light. And then one person was like, well, if we're going to do it, I want to make sure that we have more tables and there's only like one person per table. And then someone else was like, oh, that's a good idea. And we should get the hotel to give us like extra sanitizer. And then I pointed out the flaw in that logic that said, the hotel is aware that someone tested positive. And if we start asking for all of these things, they're going to be like, yeah, we're going to shut you down and kick you
Right,
out, because that would
right.
be the responsible thing to do. And so then suddenly everyone starts to panic and they're like thinking about who they were in contact the night before and what do they do. So now we're trying to find hotline numbers because there really wasn't any hotline numbers there. We found two. One was disconnected. The other one was just a busy signal, probably because all of us were calling it at the same time and everybody else in Ontario. And then, I ended up myself calling the emergency room of a local hospital because, the only person I had seen since the previous day was my wife, the one person in the world that I would not want to have this exposed to. Not that I want the rest of you to get it, but her especially, of course. And I was freaking out. And they were like, I was like, I got to come and get tested because my wife has a pre-existing condition. And they're like, no, you're not. We're not doing that. Like testing's not going to be for weeks. And I was getting angry. I was being insistent, which was totally not me. And eventually I was like, okay, I'm sorry. I get it. Thank you. And then I called my wife, same thing, as I'm on my way to my car. Right. And I was like, I'm going to stay at a hotel for a couple of weeks because there's no way I wanted to be near her longer than I had. But she's like, listen, you already were here for the night with me. If I'm infected, I'm infected. You staying at a hotel is not going to help either of us. So remember earlier in the show, we were talking about what worked for me was just accepting that all of us have it. That's
Yes.
actually when that happened for me, because for the next couple of days, I was just second guessing everything. I was pampering her, taking care of her. I was freaking out about who, like it was only her and her brother of all people, because he's my workout partner. So I had seen him that morning. So I felt a responsibility that I would have to tell him. And I was going through all the track back in my mind. And then we got the call that it was a misunderstanding. And instead of just breathing a sigh of relief, I just accepted it as the reality that no, let's assume that I have it,
Yes.
that my wife has it, that everyone has it, because I was happy with my mindset. I was full of fear at first too, but like you said, you processed it quickly. I processed quickly and got to a point where I'm like, now what are the necessary actions to take to
Right.
minimize it? sadness.
Right.
And that's where I wanted to be, and that's where I've been since. And I think for me, circling back to that sadness we talked about, we're excited that Canadians especially are doing great at flattening the curve. Like statistically speaking, we're ahead of every other country because we've actually learned from the example set before us. So that's exciting. But where the sadness comes from is when I shifted my mentality to one of, okay, how can I stop spreading this infection? And then I even look out my front window to the right of me and I just see people walking around and, you know, casually doing whatever. I'm like, come on, humanity. None of us wants to be here right now. I get it. But the longer you're out there, the longer all of us have to stay in here. So get it together already. Right?
Yeah.
Hashtag stay the home. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. I wanted to tell you how much I've loved chatting with you. Stick around after just for a few minutes.
No problem.
What would you like to share with people that watch this video? What would you like to say to them more than anything as a single mom taking care of a young daughter? Your daughter's 4?
Yes.
4 years old, elderly parents at home. You have such a unique perspective that I haven't had any other guests share yet. So what's the one little word of wisdom you want to give people?
Well, it'll be words because I wouldn't be able to narrow it down into. I don't want to. I don't want to narrow it down to one word.
No, of course, of course.
I want to tell everyone I love you. It's this is a perfect time for us to remember that we're brothers and sisters and to take care of one another. We're going to be okay. Unfortunately, there are going to be some losses, but it's a chance for us to be mindful of what we do, be mindful of the people that are around us, and spread more love and be cautious. This is a good way to develop healthy habits. Don't forget to exercise and drink lots of fluids and just enjoy the time. Do your best not to get annoyed with the people that if you're forced to have company that you're living with. Take this as an opportunity to enjoy the time. You may not get the quality time again. I mean, the amount of time that I'm spending with my daughter is absolutely beautiful. So it just want everyone to appreciate and look for the good, so that the bad doesn't really affect their mindset. That's it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Kindness, empathy, and just being present, fully present to enjoy each and every moment. Because regardless of what's going on in the world right now is a gift.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with me today,
Thank you.
sister. I will talk to you again soon.
Okay.